"We're going in a different direction," Tyler said with that half smirk I'd come to hate. "Thanks for everything, but we need people who fit the new model." My name's Logan Barrett, 38 years old, senior account executive at Veltri Dynamics for the past 7 years. At least I was until about 45 seconds ago. I nodded, didn't argue, didn't plead my case by mentioning that I'd just closed our most successful quarter in company history. Didn't point out that I'd personally brought in 60% of total revenue. Didn't ask what the new model even meant. "Got it. Best of luck," I said, standing up. Tyler looked almost disappointed, like he'd been expecting, maybe hoping for, an outburst. Something to justify whatever story he'd already planned to tell about me after I left. Instead, I walked out calmly, leaving my collection of top performer plaques in the cabinet behind me. 7 years of achievement gathering dust. Let him keep them. Back at my desk, I packed up quickly. A few personal photos, coffee mug, the baseball Jason had signed for me after I helped him secure his first round of funding. While I cleared out my space, co-workers stared at their screens, typing furiously about nothing. Nobody made eye contact. Human Resources gave me the standard exit spiel. Non-compete clause reminders. Company property return checklist. Exit survey link. The woman across the desk looked uncomfortable. She knew the numbers I'd brought in, knew what I was worth. I handed in my badge, laptop, and phone. "Good luck with everything, Logan," she said, and I could hear the genuine regret. "Appreciate it," I replied. As the elevator descended, I wasn't angry. Not exactly. Something colder had settled in. A quiet certainty that Tyler McRae had made the biggest mistake of his professional life. He'd been with Veltri Dynamics less than a month, full of buzzwords, Harvard Business Review quotes, obsessed with reshaping the sales culture into something more aggressive, whatever that meant. What Tyler didn't know, what Human Resources never thought to check, was that every single one of my top clients had personal connections to me. College roommates who'd launched startups, groomsmen from my wedding who now ran procurement departments, old friends who'd been with me since before Veltri Dynamics even existed. In his spreadsheets, they were just account numbers and revenue figures. To me, they were relationships built over decades. I walked out to my car, jacket slung over my shoulder. My phone, my personal phone, buzzed with a message from Brian, my biggest client. "You free for lunch tomorrow?" I smiled for the first time that day. I'd been with Veltri Dynamics since they were just a scrappy startup operating out of a converted warehouse in Cincinnati. Back then, we were 15 people with big dreams and empty bank accounts. I was employee number 8. My job was simple: bring in clients, keep them happy, grow the relationships. That's what I did. Not by handing out branded pens or taking people golfing, but by actually giving a damn. By remembering birthdays and asking about kids. By calling just to check in, not to upsell. By being a resource, not just a vendor. When my old roommate Brian launched his logistics company, I was his first call for supply chain software. When Jason's health tech startup needed security integration, I brought him on board. When Dave expanded his manufacturing business, I made sure we scaled with him. 62% of my book of business came from people I'd known before they were clients. The rest came from their referrals. The first sign of trouble appeared 3 months ago during the quarterly review. Our CEO introduced Tyler McRae, brought in from some Silicon Valley firm I'd never heard of. Hair too perfect, smile too wide. Everything about him screamed ambition without substance. "Tyler's going to revolutionize our approach to sales," the CEO announced, "make us more competitive in the modern marketplace." I'd heard that kind of talk before, usually from people who'd never actually closed a deal themselves. 2 weeks later, Tyler called a sales team meeting, presented a new client acquisition strategy that involved cold outreach quotas and script-based pitches, made a big show about measurable metrics and performance analytics. Not once did he mention relationships. After the meeting, Dave texted me, "Your new boss seems like a real piece of work." Another warning came during a client dinner. Tyler insisted on joining me and Brian, my biggest account, talking over him constantly, interrupting with corporate jargon that made Brian visibly uncomfortable. In the parking lot afterward, Brian pulled me aside. "That guy's going to be a problem for you, isn't he?" I shrugged it off. Just knew, finding his footing. But something in my gut knew better. The way Tyler looked at my client list, the way he questioned my process, but never my results. When he started scheduling one-on-ones with junior sales reps without including me, I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to believe someone would be foolish enough to burn down what took years to build. I didn't call anyone after getting fired, didn't have to. By 7 p.m. that evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First was Brian. "Just got an email introducing my new account manager. What's going on?" Then Jason. "Some kid just called me, said he's taking over my account. You okay?" Dave. "Your replacement just called. Sounded about 12. You changing roles?" One by one, my phone lit up with similar messages. 18 clients, every major account I managed, all reaching out within hours, not because Veltri Dynamics had contacted them, but because they wanted to hear from me first. I sat on my back deck, bourbon in hand, watching the Cincinnati skyline as dusk settled over the city. The anger I'd expected never showed up. Instead, a cold clarity washed over me. Tyler had made a fundamental mistake. He'd looked at spreadsheets instead of people, seen revenue instead of relationships, calculated my worth based on what he thought I did, not understanding what I'd built. My phone rang again. This time it was Allison from Travella Freight, a client I'd landed 3 years ago. "Logan? What the hell is happening? I just got the strangest call from some guy saying he's my new contact." "They let me go this morning," I said simply. Silence on the line. "Are you serious? After the quarter you just had?" "New VP has a different vision." "Well, his vision better include finding a new logistics partner, because I'm not working with whoever this new person is. Did they even look at how much business you bring in?" "Apparently not enough. I'm calling Jennifer right now." Jennifer was our CEO. "This is ridiculous." "I appreciate that, but don't put yourself in an awkward position." "Logan, you've bailed us out of technical emergencies at midnight. You came to my dad's funeral. This isn't business, it's personal." After Allison, I took 5 more similar calls. By 10 p.m., I turned my phone off. Needed to think. I wasn't going to actively sabotage Veltri Dynamics, that wasn't my style, but I also wasn't going to protect them from the consequences of their own bad decisions. In the morning, I woke up to an email from Jessica Lewis, VP of Sales at Hailstorm Brewing, Veltri's main competitor. We'd met at industry conferences over the years, always been cordial. "Heard what happened. Unbelievable. Let's grab coffee this week?" I didn't have to wonder how she'd heard. News travels fast in our industry. As I showered and dressed that morning, something shifted inside me. The loyalty I'd felt toward Veltri Dynamics, the company I'd helped build, evaporated completely. They hadn't just fired an employee. They'd severed relationships they didn't even know existed. I texted Jessica back. "Coffee sounds good. Tomorrow at 9? Her response came immediately. "Perfect. I have some ideas I think you'll like." For the first time since walking out of Tyler's office, I smiled. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood my true value. And so would Veltri Dynamics. Soon enough. The coffee shop Jessica suggested was clear across town from the Veltri Dynamics office. Smart move. Cincinnati's business community was too small for accidental run-ins. Jessica looked exactly as I remembered her. Sharp, confident, without trying too hard. No power suit, just practical business casual and an easy smile. "They're idiots," she said after we'd exchanged greetings. "Everyone in the industry is talking about it." Everyone? When the top performer at a competitor suddenly becomes available, people notice. She sipped her coffee. Especially when that person is responsible for more than half their revenue. I shrugged. Ancient history now. Not according to my phone. It's been blowing up since yesterday with clients asking if we've hired you yet. That caught me off guard. Your clients are asking about me? Logan, you've built relationships across this entire industry. People trust you. That's rare. She slid a folder across the table. So here's what Hailstorm is prepared to offer. Director of Enterprise Relationships. Team of 6 reporting to you. Base salary 30% higher than what you were making, plus an aggressive commission structure. I glanced through the papers. The numbers were better than I'd expected. And full autonomy, she added. Build your division how you want. Sounds good, I said carefully. But I need to be upfront about something. The non-compete clause in my contract, Jessica waved her hand. Already ran it by legal. It's practically unenforceable. Ohio courts rarely uphold them, especially in cases of termination without cause. Still, I don't want to start a legal battle. Agreed, which is why we're suggesting a 60-day consulting arrangement first. After that, full employment. It was a good plan. Well thought out. One more thing, I said. My clients. We're not asking you to violate any confidentiality agreements. But if your former clients happen to seek out new vendors on their own, I nodded slowly. That's their business decision. Exactly. I took a day to think it over, but the decision was already made. Signed the consulting agreement the following morning. By then, the fallout had already begun. Brian's company, my biggest account worth nearly $5 million annually, had paused all implementation projects with Veltri, citing relationship restructuring evaluation. Corporate speak for, "We're not happy." Jason's health tech firm had requested full documentation of all processes in preparation for potential vendor transition. 3 more clients had declined meetings with their newly assigned account managers. I hadn't orchestrated any of it, hadn't needed to. These were my friends responding naturally to a broken trust. That afternoon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. Logan Barrett. Logan, it's Jennifer Murray. Veltri's CEO. My stomach tightened. Jennifer, what can I do for you? I'm calling to understand what's happening with our client base. Of course. Now she wanted to talk. I'm not sure what you mean, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I've been gone less than a week. Several key accounts are suddenly threatening to leave. Brian from Northspire Apparel says he'll only talk to you. The relationships I built were personal, Jennifer, you know that. Logan, be reasonable. Those are company accounts. I haven't contacted a single client. If they're reaching out to me, that's their choice. We need you to help with the transition. Make introductions, smooth things over. I almost laughed. You mean clean up Tyler's mess? Silence on the line. Then, the board has concerns about his decision. We could discuss your returning. Same position, 10% increase. Too little, too late. I appreciate the offer, Jennifer, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. Another pause. I see. I hope you'll at least consider not actively poaching our clients. I don't need to poach what's already leaving on its own. After I hung up, I felt no satisfaction, just confirmation of what I'd already known. Veltri had only valued the revenue, never understanding the relationships that created it. Now they were learning the difference, the hard way. 2 weeks into my consulting arrangement with Hailstorm, I met with Brian for lunch at our usual spot downtown. The restaurant wasn't fancy, just a reliable place with good burgers and private booths where we could talk freely. Tyler's been calling me daily, Brian said, shaking his head. Yesterday, he offered a 15% discount if we'd resume the implementation schedule. And? I told him it wasn't about the money. Brian took a sip of his iced tea. Then he started bad-mouthing you. Said you'd been on your way out anyway. Performance issues. My jaw tightened. Classy. That's when I told him we were exploring other options and hung up. This pattern repeated in conversations with other clients. Tyler was scrambling, making desperate offers while simultaneously trying to undermine me. Classic damage control from someone who knew he'd made a catastrophic mistake. But there was something else happening, something I hadn't anticipated. Jason called that evening. You're not going to believe this. I requested a full data export as a precaution, and they're stonewalling, claiming our contract doesn't guarantee data portability. That's not right, I said. Section 12B specifically covers data ownership and transfer rights. I know. I have the contract right here, but their legal team is suddenly reinterpreting the language. The next day, Dave reported similar issues. Then Allison. One by one, my former clients were discovering that Veltri was making it difficult for them to leave. I called Jessica immediately. They're deliberately creating exit barriers, I explained. Technical roadblocks, contract reinterpretations, sudden system maintenance that affects only clients who've indicated they might leave. Jessica wasn't surprised. Tyler's fighting for his career now. The board's breathing down his neck about the revenue forecasts. This goes beyond normal retention tactics. They're essentially holding client data hostage. Jessica's voice hardened. Get me documentation. Every instance, every client affected. Our legal team will have a field day with this. Over the next week, I collected evidence. Screenshots of suddenly unavailable export functions, emails denying access to supposedly guaranteed services, recorded calls where Veltri representatives made thinly veiled threats about data loss if clients terminated early. But the real bombshell came from Dave, who forwarded me an email he'd received by mistake. It had been intended for Tyler. Attached is the client retention strategy you requested, the email read. We've identified technical dependencies we can leverage to delay transitions for the Barrett accounts. Legal believes we can stretch these maneuvers 3 or 4 months minimum before facing any meaningful penalties. Attached was a spreadsheet listing every one of my former clients, with specific retention tactics assigned to each. It wasn't just Tyler. It was systematic, coordinated, deliberately obstructive. I forwarded everything to Hailstorm's legal department. Their response was immediate and forceful. This constituted tortious interference and potential violation of data protection laws. That night, I sat on my deck again, watching the Cincinnati skyline. The city looked different now. 7 years at Veltri, believing I was part of something worthwhile. All that time, I'd thought I was building something meaningful, not just client relationships, but a company with integrity. Now I understood the truth. When faced with the consequences of their mistake, Veltri's leadership had chosen obstruction over accountability. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about 18 businesses, many owned or run by friends, being deliberately harmed to cover someone else's failure. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Legal team has what they need. Board approved the full offensive. You ready for this? I texted back one word. Yes. The quiet clarity I'd felt before crystallized into something stronger. Resolution. Determination. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Hailstorm's lawyers moved quickly. Within 48 hours, they'd drafted cease and desist letters addressing Veltri's obstructive tactics, with specific references to contract violations, data protection laws, and unfair business practices. But they didn't send them immediately. That was my call. We could fire these off tomorrow, Jessica said during our strategy meeting. Shut down their games right away. I shook my head. Not yet. I have a better approach. My plan was simple but effective. Help my former clients help themselves. First, I created a detailed guide documenting every known tactic Veltri was using to obstruct transitions, along with specific contractual clauses that protected client rights. Nothing in it violated my non-disclosure agreement. It was simply an educational resource explaining standard industry contracts. Next, I arranged a series of industry networking lunches, small, casual gatherings where my former clients could meet each other for the first time. No formal agenda, just business owners and executives sharing experiences. I attended only the first one, making introductions before excusing myself. Sorry, conflict of interest, but you all might find you have some common business challenges worth discussing. By the third such lunch, they'd formed their own informal alliance, began comparing notes, pooling knowledge, discovering they weren't alone in their struggles with Veltri. Meanwhile, I was building something new at Hailstorm. Not just bringing on individual team members, but designing an entire client relationship division focused on long-term partnerships rather than transactions. Jessica gave me complete freedom to implement my vision. "The results speak for themselves," she said after reviewing my progress. "The board is thrilled." 1 month into our strategy, the pressure on Veltri began mounting. Clients were collectively demanding adherence to their contract terms, armed with specific knowledge of their rights and Veltri's obligations. When multiple major accounts simultaneously threatened legal action over the same issues, Veltri couldn't dismiss it as coincidence. Someone was coordinating the response. Jennifer called again. This time her tone was different, desperate. "What do you want, Logan? What will it take to stop this?" "I'm not doing anything, Jennifer. Your clients are simply exercising their contractual rights. We both know you're behind this. The board is considering legal action against you for client interference." "You fired me, Jennifer," I reminded her calmly. "Any communication I've had with my friends since then is personal, not professional." "Friends," she repeated flatly. "Yes, friends. That's what you and Tyler never understood. These weren't just accounts to me." The line went quiet. Then, "Tyler's been let go." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it. Losing a job unexpectedly was something I understood all too well. "We're prepared to make amends. Full data portability for any client that wants it. No early termination fees. Clean transitions." It was what my former clients deserved. "That sounds reasonable. And we want to talk about bringing you back. Executive VP position, direct board access." Now that was unexpected. I considered it for about 2 seconds. "I appreciate the offer, Jennifer, but I've found where I belong." After we hung up, I contacted Brian and the others, not to relay the conversation, but to give them a heads up. "You might find Veltri more cooperative going forward." Within days, Veltri announced an enhanced client transition program, offering exactly what Jennifer had described. They framed it as a proactive customer service initiative. Everyone knew better. By then, my new department at Hailstorm was taking shape. 3 of my former team members from Veltri had already joined. More were interviewing. Jessica stopped by my office late one evening as I was finalizing our department's mission statement. "I heard Veltri lost 8 major accounts this week," she said, leaning against the doorframe. I kept typing. The market's always changing. "And is it just coincidence that 6 of them signed with us today?" I finally looked up and smiled. "Must be our enhanced client transition program." She laughed. "Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The board's talking about a seat for you at the table by year's end." I nodded, but the title didn't matter to me. What mattered was building something that couldn't be broken by one person's poor decision, something based on real connection. 6 months after joining Hailstorm, I walked into our quarterly board meeting with Jessica and the executive team. The presentation I'd prepared was straightforward: department growth, revenue projections, client retention metrics. As I concluded, the board chair leaned forward. "These numbers are impressive, Logan. 12 new enterprise clients in 2 quarters. Retention rate near perfect. What's your secret?" "No secret," I replied. "We invest in relationships, not just transactions." The CFO spoke next. "And the Veltri accounts? 14 of their 18 top clients have switched to us now?" 15, as of yesterday," Jessica corrected, sliding a folder across the table. "Northridge Technologies signed this morning. 9-year contract." Murmurs around the table. "To be clear," I added, "we've never directly solicited Veltri clients. They've approached us, usually after experiencing difficulties with their transition processes." "Which have been extensively documented," Jessica said, patting another, thicker folder. "Our legal team has everything should Veltri ever want to pursue action." They wouldn't. Not with what we had. Not with their reputation already in tatters. The room fell silent as the board chair reviewed the latest numbers. Finally, he looked up and nodded toward me. "The board has reached a decision. We'd like to offer you the position of Executive Vice President of Strategic Relationships, effective immediately. I accepted with a simple handshake. No gloating, no speeches. That afternoon, the press release went out. My phone immediately buzzed with a message from Brian. Just saw the news. Congratulations, EVP Barrett. Moments later, my assistant knocked on my door. You have a visitor, Jennifer Murray from Veltri Dynamics. No appointment. I considered sending her away. Decided against it. Send her in. Jennifer looked tired, defeated. Congratulations on the promotion. Thank you. What can I do for you, Jennifer? She placed a folder on my desk. Veltri is exploring acquisition options. We'd like Hailstorm to consider making an offer. The acquisition went through 3 months later, not because of any lingering vendetta, but because it made good business sense. Hailstorm's board saw value in Veltri's technology stack, if not their client management approach. I insisted on one condition. Every Veltri employee would be given fair consideration for positions in the combined company. Nobody would experience what I had gone through. On the day the deal closed, I drove to Veltri's office, the converted warehouse where I'd spent 7 years of my career. The place looked smaller somehow. The remaining employees gathered nervously in the main conference room for my address. I'm not here to clean house, I began, looking at the familiar faces. I'm here because what we're building at Hailstorm is based on the same principle that should have protected me here. Relationships matter. They're worth investing in. Worth protecting. I saw relief in their eyes. Understanding. Your jobs are secure if you want them. Your contributions valued. All I ask is that you bring that same commitment to relationships, with clients, with colleagues, with partners, to everything you do going forward. Afterward, I walked through the empty sales floor one last time. Stopped at my old desk, now cleared of its temporary occupant. My phone buzzed. A message from Dave. Heard the news. Poetic justice, my friend. I smiled, looking out over the Cincinnati skyline from the window near what used to be my workspace. The view was exactly as I remembered it, but I was different, stronger, clearer about what mattered. I texted back. Not about justice, about building something better. Then I walked out, not bothering to look at the empty space where my sales awards had once stood. I didn't need them anymore. The real value had never been on that wall. It had been in the connections I'd made, the relationships I'd built, the ones that had survived when everything else fell apart.